Hi guys, welcome to Vesna TV. It's Vesna here. For today's video, I am giving new life to two items that were thrifted. So this first item is a free thrifted item. Somebody had posted that they're giving away a bunch of free furniture, so I picked this beauty up. And it's this cool little table. It's just like a side table, but it's quite heavy. It seems to be some sort of solid wood. I'm not sure, but it is very sturdy. So what I'm doing first is I always like to clean it off and make sure all of the gunk is off. So I just use like a Lysol wipe or sometimes vinegar and water, depends. I know there's people who like to use other things, but this is what I use. So I clean it off, and then what I do is I'm sanding it a little bit. Normally when I use chalk paint, because that's what I'm doing, I don't sand anything, but this time I thought, well, I'm not sure what the material is, so I'm just gonna scrape it a little bit, and there's just a few things that were kind of stuck on too, so this way it just took those things off and it was ready to go. Not like a full sanding job, just to scuff it up a little bit. And it'll help the paint stick better, but you don't need to do this step if you're using chalk paint. I just did it this time. Normally I don't, but I like the results, so I might do it again. And I'm using 150 grit sandpaper, not because of any specific reason, but other than that's the one that I had on hand. And it doesn't scuff it up too much, like where I'm like getting the wood. It just, like I said, scuffs up the stain a little bit. As you can see, there's that little part that had some sort of gunk on it, so I'm just trying to get that off. And so once I got all of that gunk off and I scuffed it up a bit, I went down and I wiped it back up with that same Lysol wipe. And again, I'm doing something different than I don't normally do. I'm going to paint it black first, and I'm using the Rustoleum charcoal black, and it's the chalked paint from Rustoleum. And the reason I'm doing this is because I will be covering it in white, and then I'm going to be distressing it, and I want some of that black showing through. And I have found lately that even though black is so much darker than white, sometimes it goes over better than if I try to do the white. I wind up using less of the white when I do it like this. So I actually saw Yvonne at Ginger Chick Rehab do this, and I thought it was a great idea. So I've been trying it out on several projects, and it's been working well. So I'm just covering it up, and if you've watched any of my chalk painting tutorial videos, you'll notice that I don't have any specific pattern of when I'm applying the paint. So all I do is I just go in all sorts of random strokes. In this way, that'll help with the brush strokes not showing. And I only do one coat of the black. I'm just doing it so that I cover all of this table. And you'll see as you're painting it that it does seep through. So you don't want to gunk on too much paint. You're better off doing kind of like a light coat, and then you can go back to a while. Like as you're doing it, it kind of dries if you're doing a light coat. The chalk paint dries fairly fast. It's not going to be set 100%, but at least you can go back then in those little spots that might be seeping through. But it worked really well doing this method, and I just cover the whole piece, the legs and everything. And I even did a little bit of the underside at the top, just so that way you wouldn't be able to see the brown at all. And you'll notice that there's spots that I've caked on too much, so I'm just kind of taking it off and adding it onto the spots that I didn't get enough on. And you want to make sure that you let this coat dry fully. So I left it actually overnight to dry. I was doing this kind of as the sun was setting, and like I said, I let it, that's why it's so bright and weird lighting in this room, but I fixed that now because I redid my craft room. But anyway, I let it dry overnight to completely set, and it helps with the other coat of paint because I've done it where I didn't let it dry quite enough, and some spots where maybe I got a little bit more paint then wound up being kind of changing the color of the white, and I didn't want that this time. However, sometimes it's exactly the look that I'm going for when I let that happen, because then it gives that depth and dimension just with the two colors kind of blending together, and then some parts being whiter, some parts being darker. Sometimes it really does like a great rustic look, but that's not what I wanted this time. So once that's nice and dry, then I go ahead and I apply my white paint. Now I made a bit of a mistake because I wanted to sand in between the charcoal black and the white, but I forgot. But it still turned out okay. But anyway, so you can add that step in, and it just helps the color look a little bit smoother, but I wound up doing it in between the two white coats, so it was fine. Now I'm using the Rustoleum chalked linen white, and again, as you can see, I'm doing all sorts of brush strokes. I'm not going in, up or down or side to side. I'm doing it both side to side and up and down, and sometimes in a circle, just enough to cover it. And again, I'm not applying too heavy of a coat. I'm going to do 2 coats of this, so I just wanted enough so that it covers it completely. Even if some of it is seeping through, I'll do another coat so that way it's a nice crisp white. But don't cake on too much because then you'll get this, then you'll be able to see the paint and the brush strokes. So that's very important. You're better off to do 2 or 3 light coats than 1 thick coat. And sanding in between is very important. So I did my vanity upstairs where I didn't sand in between, and I think that's why I wasn't happy with quite the way it turned out. So I will have to redo that at one point. I just haven't had time. It's a big job. So it looks okay, but I can see the imperfections and then it bothers me. Although as I was painting this, I did consider leaving it this way because I was liking the black coming through, but I really wanted to try kind of doing what I wound up doing. So I went through and I applied another coat, and I let this dry fully. This wasn't overnight quite. It was probably about, I did it early in the morning and then I painted it again at night. So it was like 8, 9 hours, 10 hours in between. But you could totally leave it overnight, and you probably, 3 or 4 hours would be okay too. So then what I wound up doing is I wound up painting it one more time once it dries. I'll just show you what it looks like before I painted it a second time, just so you kind of get an idea. And you just want to give it a light sanding. And it's kind of the same way as I did it at the beginning, just a little bit if there's any raised spots or anything like that, just to get a smoother finish. And that's all you're going to do. And then once that dries, you're going to give it another light sanding. So I'll show you what that light sanding looks like. And you might be able to dry this faster than mine was. Mine's in the basement, so it's a little bit cooler down there. So I'm just using that 150 grit paper, and I am just lightly sanding the top and all of it actually. Anywhere that there's like little spots sticking up, I'm sanding just to get, now do a very, very light sanding of this, otherwise you're going to have to do another coat. So just lightly to get any raised spots up, anything that kind of any imperfections, and that'll really help when you apply your wax to get that smooth finish. So like I said, just be very gentle, otherwise you're going to have to paint over it. I think I wound up having to paint over just like a little spot. And then once you do that, then you're going to take a bit of a stronger sandpaper and you're going to like do a really hard sanding to distress it. So you can see I tried doing it with the original sandpaper, but I had to really push down to get some of that distressing on. So I wound up getting another piece of sandpaper, just something a little bit rougher. But all I'm doing is I'm doing all of the edges, and then I'm just doing random spots at the bottom and at the top. And on the legs, I'm doing kind of the tip of the leg, the sides of the leg, and just kind of anywhere where you kind of want it to look distressed. You want it to be really random though. You don't want to be like, like a straight line there. And, you don't want it to be, you want it to look like it over time. That's how it became distressed, not that you did like you distressed it. So that's very important. Once you are done distressing this table, so again, you're happy with the final look, and you could do more than what I did. I didn't do a lot. I just did a little bit just for it to look a little bit dinged up, but not too much. And then once you're happy with it, then you want to protect it because you don't want it to get further dinged up. So you're going to use some sort of sealant. I like to use the Sloan wax, and I'm using the clear wax for this, and it'll just apply a layer of protection over top. And the wax also, when you're applying it, it's the same idea as the paint. So if you're using a brush to apply the wax, I'm not, but if you use a brush, you want to make sure you do random strokes. I've chosen to do a rag, so I've got two rags. One where I apply the wax, so that's like the thicker coating, and I'm just kind of rubbing it in all sorts of directions, in circles, up and down. And then I'll take my dry rag and I'll just wipe off the excess and buff it a little bit. You can go back, once this dries, you can go back and buff a little bit more. I did not wind up doing that. I did a pretty good job buffing it now, and it wasn't tacky, it wasn't sticky or anything like that. It really depends how much wax you put on, but I like to always buff it kind of just right after or a little bit after I put the wax on. And so right now I'm buffing and removing the excess, and then, like I said, I didn't go back hours after, but once I finished applying to the whole table and removing from the whole table, then I went back and I just buffed a little bit. And that's all there is to this. So this is really easy. If you're ever looking at pieces of furniture and you love the shape of it, but you're not, it's an ugly color or it's a little bit dinged up, this is a really simple way of updating a piece of furniture. You don't have to make it distressed like this. You can make it plain or you can make it distressed, but this is a great way to add that farmhouse look without spending a lot of money. This was free to do. So, well, I mean, the paint costs money, but I always have the paint. So, and I think it turned out really nice. So what I really liked with the black, some of the black is coming through and some of the brown is coming through. So I love it. Here it is styled. I think it turned out really, really nice. Let me know what you think of this one, and let's move on to the second one. But before we do that, again, my name is Vesna and this is Vesna TV. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you haven't been to my channel before, I do all sorts of budget-friendly DIYs and thrift flips, dollar store DIYs. Basically, any kind of home decor DIYs, I do them on this channel, and I try to do everything on a budget. So if that's the kind of stuff you like, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can see every time I post a new video. And check out my other videos as well. Always, always, I love to hear from you guys, so leave me a comment, let me know what you think. And I am participating in a collab for this video, and the collaboration is actually hosted by Sandra from the Schwoven's Nest. So if you guys haven't heard of Sandra before at the Schwoven's Nest, you have to check her out. If you love farmhouse type of thrift flips, DIYs, anything like that, she is your gal. She does an amazing job. She's very talented, and a lot of her stuff is on a budget. She does great flips, a lot of woodwork stuff, anything basically farmhousey, home decor. She does it. Very talented lady, really, really, really nice lady. So make sure you check her out. She's amazing, fantastic creator, and she's gracious enough to host this collab with us, and us being myself, Jamie from Simple Roots, Simple Living, Pat from Pat's Home Craft, and Cindy from That Crafting Lady. So if you haven't checked out these other creators, again, really talented ladies. They have amazing channels, some really neat ideas on there. So make sure you check out the whole playlist. Everything will be linked in my description, and I'll link all these ladies' channels as well. Make sure you check everybody out. It'll be a great playlist. I'm really excited to watch everyone's videos. So for the next flip, I got this picture. I really kind of thought this was cute. Let's potty, let the good times roll. I thought it was really cute, but I'm not going to be using it in this frame. What I'm actually going to be doing for this flip is I'm going to be flipping the frame. So I'm going to keep that let's potty for a different DIY, and I want to use this frame. And being Valentine's Day, I thought I'd do kind of a Valentine's Day flair to this. So in keeping with the same farmhousey look like I did with the table, I'm going to be painting this out. So the glass is pretty dirty, so I'll have to clean that out, but I'm going to clean the frame, same thing. I'm going to do the Lysol wipes just to get it nice and clean. And then I'm going to be using my 2 paints. So for my first paint, as you can see, I'm using the Rustoleum chalked charcoal paint. So it's basically just a kind of like a matte black. I love this paint. I've used it quite a bit, and I've even like tried to replicate this matte black in different projects. But I'm just painting it out, and once I get it fully covered, I let it dry. I go back and just touch it up a little bit because I didn't notice that there were spots that I didn't get, but I let it dry overnight thoroughly before I apply the white paint. For the white paint, again, I'm using the Rustoleum chalked linen white paint. Actually, Sandra is the one who got me hooked on this paint. She was using it quite a bit. Before this, I was using the Annie Sloan white paint, but I really like this paint. It's a little bit more budget friendly than the Annie Sloan one, only because you can get the big jug of it. So I always get the big jug at Home Depot, and I use it for a lot of my projects. So again, I'm just applying the paint. Now, obviously, with this one, I can't do too much of a random stroke because it's just a little frame. But I'm covering it nicely once, and then I'll do it again. This one I did not do sanding in between just because it didn't need it. I just make sure that you do a lighter coat. You don't want to cake on too much. Once it dried, all I did was I just lightly sanded it to get a little bit of the distressed look. So again, using that 150 grit sandpaper, I sanded, again, random spots just to get the distressed look, a little bit at the top, a little bit at the bottom. So you kind of, when you're doing this, do a little bit. Don't do a lot at once just in case you don't like it. But again, it's just paint. So if you don't like it, you can paint over it. It's not the end of the world. But in case you want to save yourself the work, you just do a little bit and then add more as you go. People often tell me, oh, I would love to paint my furniture, but I'm so scared. Well, I get it. If something is stained and then you paint it and you don't like it, you might not be able to get that same stain. But you can always, it's wood, so you can always strip it and get it back to the, especially if it's good quality stuff, you can get it back to its bare shape and stain it anything you want if you didn't like the paint. It's just a lot of elbow grease, but it's not like you've cut it up into pieces and now you can't have it back. So anyway, once you've got the distress look, then you want to put in whatever you want in your picture frame. I chose to do this Love Deeply sign just in the spirit of Valentine's Day, and then in the spirit of Farmhouse. I thought this was a really cute little picture to put in there, and I just wrote Love Deeply on my Google Drive, like in my Google Docs folder. I use that. I always call it Amanatic, but it's Amatic SC, and then for the deeply, I just used a cursive font that I had. And that's it. So I just put it in here, and this project is done. Now the picture frame is one that should be hung, so I didn't have a back to it, but I just kind of, you can either add a back if you wanted to. I'm probably going to be either using it in the corner on my fireplace or on a tray, so I did not add a back, but here it is. Again, nicely distressed. Love the way this one turned out too. And I believe I got this frame for 50 cents at the Dollar Tree, at the thrift store. I got it a while back because I figured we'd be going into lockdown and the thrift store was closed, and I was right. So I got this back in November. I actually got a whole bunch of stuff that I thought I could use for future projects, and I've just been saving it because we've been doing Christmas stuff, but I'm glad I did because I'll have things to work on during the lockdown. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys check out Sandra's channel at the Schwoman's Nest and all the other creators as well in the playlist. And give me a big thumbs up if you like this video. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. And thank you so much for stopping by. Have an excellent day and stay safe, everyone.